Hello, as I promised in the previous video, on this one I would be helping you to identify if an agent is following the New Jersey rules and regulations for the real estate slash New Jersey statute law or not, because that will also help you to identify if you can basically trust that agent or not, because if an agent is not following the law, should you trust it? Then let's get into it. Some things changed last year in August because of a lawsuit that was done in other states and overflowed to New Jersey. We had some changes in the law, some things still very much the same, but there were some changes. And I'm going to go over both things. The things that are the same have to do with the presentation to the clients in the first meeting of a form called the CIS form, which it is the Consumer Information Statement that I like to have that for myself and the team in a trifold page that has the information of the company, and actually in the last page also the information of the member of the team. Identification is good. This form, it is mandatory to give to a client in the first meeting in person. It does not matter if there was already previous contact via email and you send either a PDF or a link via email to that client. It doesn't matter. The law is very clear. You have to give a hard copy in person in the first meeting. This form had a slight change last year. It was, in my opinion, a very welcome change in the form because it introduced New Jersey to designated agency. Very welcoming situation because the dual agency situation, in many cases, it's really a very fine line for agents and brokerages to walk in. So, designated agent is a new form of representation that is very good to help everybody and to make sure that the clients have a better representation and more clarity in terms of fiduciary duties. So then you have different situations where you are meeting with clients. Is the client coming into an open house, or are you calling the office, introducing yourself because you want information from a listing that may or may not be that agent's listing? Different situations, and I'll start. Okay, you're coming into an open house, and one of the things that you should notice in the open house, most likely as soon as you come in, or sometimes on top of a table, is a notice that became mandatory last year in August with the acting of these new rules, some changes. This notice will tell you exactly that the agents in that open house are primarily representing the seller and they have a fiduciary duty to the seller. You must say if you have already a buyer agency agreement with another agent or not, and register in that registry for the open house. It's something that I would say 99% of the agents will require. Yes, in that registry should be an option that you have an agent that you have already a buyer agency agreement with. If you don't, then you can choose to work with that agent, even though that agent is representing the seller, which you should know immediately because of that formular that is nothing more than a notice, a disclosure. Now, what happens with that situation? Then you should ask if the agent is going to work with the designated agency. And actually, once you decided to work with that agent, then he is obligated to actually present to you the CIS form and explain to you the different forms of representation. Okay, we'll go a little later if that agent, if you decide to work with a listing agent. Um, then the other way of representation that is simpler is the buyer agent. You can choose to work with a buyer because someone recommended that the buyer agent. Um, you call the office, and that agent picked up the phone and is providing you information. You like the way you engaged with that agent and decided to work with that agent. It should be a meeting set up to clarify what you're looking for and all of that. If the agent sends you information via email, normally in that email it should be, in the at least in the first one, a buyer agency agreement that is either in the form of a link or PDF. And then in the first meeting in person, you should actually have the form presented to you. Many times the agent will ask to sign one, so he keeps one as proof that you receive the CIS form. The next thing is, if you're choosing to work with that agent may ask you to sign a buyer agency agreement immediately there, or at least before the first showing. Is going to ask you to sign a buyer agency agreement. It is in New Jersey mandatory that the agent have that form signed by the buyer before any showing. It could sign a form for all the showings with that agent, or specifically for a house that is going to show you. That's a choice between you and the agent. And you should read that form. Our organization, Keller Williams Midtown Direct, has a very simple form. There is a two-page form and very easy to understand. Was created by our attorney that is a specialist for real estate law in New Jersey. So now, if you're calling the office and you're dealing with the listing agent, he is obligated to go show you the house because he has a fiduciary duty with the seller. He has to go show you the house. No need for the buy agency agreement. Now, if you decided to put an offer with that agent, then there's some things that you need to clarify with that agent. Is he going to represent you as a buyer agent? He can't. He's got to be a designated agent to represent the buyer because he's already representing the seller. Now, if he's going to be a designated agent representing the buyer, his broker or someone designated by the broker is going to be sitting with the seller. Otherwise, he cannot be a designated agent. He's going to be a dual agent. And in a dual agent, the agent is really split in terms of the fiduciary duties. You should not work with, mainly now, before there was no other solution, but now you should always work with agents that either do one of the representations or designated agency, and that designated agency has to be practiced properly by the organization. You went to the open house and you decided to work with that agent to buy that house, same thing applies. You need to get clarification about what is the agent doing. Is he representing the seller? Is he working in dual agency or designated agency? It is very important that you understand those things because of what happened with fiduciary duties and the information that the agent can share from you to the seller, from the seller to you. It's very important to understand those things. There's one thing that is not impacted in there. The listing agent has to disclose everything in regards to the property. It doesn't matter if there's something wrong in the property, the listing agent still obligated to disclose that. The seller cannot expect that the listing agent is going to hide anything regarding the property. There's situations, and that's where the dual agency is a little problematic, and the designated agency allows that separation. Is if the seller has disclosed to that agent some financial situation that a buyer could try to take advantage if they knew about it, those are the situations that the agent cannot disclose. The listing agent cannot disclose some information that is going to hinder the possibility of that seller to do the best deal possible. Same way, cannot disclose any information from the buyer that can help that buyer do something, do the best deal possible. And those situations are very difficult to manage when you're in dual agency. When you're in designated agents, because that agent should no longer talk with the two people at the same time, is a much easier way to manage the situation. So, three forms that I promised to bring to you in this video is the CIS form, so the Consumer Information Statement, the Buyer Agency Agreement. These two forms are mandatory when working with the buyers at all time. CIS information mandatory with all clients, buyers, sellers, tenants, landlords, all the time. And then the disclosure that is mandatory nowadays in the open houses all the time. So here we're done for today, and I will follow up probably next time, going over the procedure of what would be the best way that a buyer agent is going to assist a buyer that called or went into an open house but did not like that house but wants to work with you. What would be the best way? Until then, I'll leave that for the next time. And most likely on that, I'll be sharing a screen with you to show you things that agents can do to help you to obtain information faster and better than some of the websites that you're searching, and they're just selling your information. They're not providing you the best information. Thank you. Till then.